Frank Edwards, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel.
No, glad to be here, Terry.
You and I have known each other for a number of years. We first met when you were the head of the firefighters years ago, 25 years ago or so, I suppose.
At least, and we've been friends ever since.
And one of the things in the context of what's happening in the state of Illinois now that we wanted to talk to you about is when we look at the state's finances, and the Illinois Channel is doing a series of interviews with office holders on that. Everyone's familiar that the state, even if they don't know the specifics, is in a fiscal crisis for a variety of reasons.
Well, it's beyond crisis, Terry. We're near collapse, and everybody might as well just understand that. There's no crisis to this. We're talking collapse.
And yet, when you became the mayor on the death of Springfield Mayor Tim Davlin, you were an alderman and were kind of thrust into the office. You did you had the kind of response that I think we need at the state level. Tell us, when you came into office, what was the situation of the Springfield finances?
Well, there were two things, Terry. First, I wasn't thrust in. I asked to do it because I knew that we needed to have something done. And just doing the same old stuff wasn't going to work. And I had a kind of an idea how bad it was. Didn't really realize how bad it was till I walked in and the staff said, "Do you know how bad it is?" And I said, "Well, I think we're probably $6 million in debt." And they said, "No, actually it's closer to 8, maybe 10. And we have $2,000 in the checking account, and we just about missed payroll twice. And if it hadn't been for TIF funding being in the checking account, we would have missed payroll twice." So they looked at me and I looked at them and I said, "Roll up your sleeves, we're going to get busy. And anything that happens from here on, I'll take the blame for." And then we started making tough decisions. And we didn't increase any taxes or fees. And when we were done, we handed the government off to the next mayor in the black, budget-wise, but we had work to do on pension stuff, but we weren't able to do that because it was, my time was so short there. But
so you had $2,000 in the checking account, $8 to $10 million in debt, and you were only mayor because it was a temporary situation.
Yeah, 6 months.
Of 6 months. And then what was the checking account for the city at when you left the office?
Well, when I left, taxes were just beginning to roll in, but we had, if they stayed the course the next 7 months, they had a bank balance of about $800,000 in the black. So it was.
And were you able to reduce debt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We trimmed just in payroll alone. We trimmed almost $4 million. And there's a difference. Terry, when you say we reduced headcount, there's two ways to look at that when you're in government. When you say I didn't fill that position is different from I took that position off the books. And most people don't understand that. We literally took jobs off the books. And the difference is if you leave that job in the book, then you have to fund that position with health care because you don't know when it's going to be filled. You have to pay workers' comp on that position because you don't know when it's going to be filled. And we looked at that and said, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. We're not going to fill that position, and we're going to make it so the next guy can't fill that position. We'll just take it right off the books. When we did that, we saved about $3.2 million in health care and workers' comp benefit right there to the city that they didn't have to pay out. So that was just one thing right there we did. And then we just worked our way through it, doing things like that.
And now that's municipal government. Have you looked at state government or talked? Do you think what your approach would work for state government?
Well, I do. Actually, I had so many people say you can't cut your way out of this. And they're in your face, they're in your ear, you can't cut this out, you're going to have to raise. I said, no, let's see what we can do first. And you have to block those people out of the picture. And you also have to have people on board that know what they're doing, and you have to understand their agency. And they have to be on your agenda. I took over, left the same people in the position. It was really interesting. I'm a Republican. They were Democrats on staff, and we worked together, and we solved the problem. So this stuff you can't reach across party lines is silliness. If you have strong leaders that'll stand up, you can get stuff done, and we got it done. And that's what I expect out of state government. This is absolutely ridiculous that you have two grown men that are holding up a state that has, I mean, we're sitting right in the military of the heart of the United States. We should be leading in manufacturing, distribution, you name it. We should be it. We're right here in the heartland. And for this to be held up is ridiculous.
Yeah, because a lot of people can do a lot of things, but they're not going to rebuild a Chicago like we have, and they're not going to change the location of their state. And the fact that we're
No.
smack in the middle of the nation is a great advantage.
Well, we have great airports. If I owned a company that was in distribution, this is one of the places I'd live. But because of the instability of the finances and the potential to tax your business into oblivion, you gotta say, I can't go in there, let alone the rules and regulations that you face to build. I own a company here, and it's almost silly, some of the stuff that we do. It's mind-boggling. And that brings you to the point that why do they do it? Why doesn't somebody stand up and say, we've been doing this for, pick a number, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Why doesn't it change? It's not working, and we continue to do it over and over. Isn't that the definition of insanity?
And after you were mayor, you remained on the board of aldermen for a while, and now you're off the city council, right?
Right.
And now you're pretty typical small business owner. What impact on a small business are the taxes in the state of Illinois? We often hear people complain about that, but from your standpoint as someone running a small business.
It's just the constant paying of taxes, Terry. I pay a payroll tax every Friday. At the end of the month, I pay an unemployment tax. We're paying Social Security constantly. We're paying Medicare constantly. Not only are the employees paying their part, but we're matching
Which is
their
everywhere
part.
for the, I mean, it's a
everywhere.
payroll tax.
Exactly.
But
And
then you have the property taxes,
you
I
have your
suppose?
property taxes that I think are absolutely ridiculous.
How, and you don't have to give us a number, but how, on like a rough percentage-wise, have your property taxes gone up like we often hear other people complaining?
Mine's gone up 10% just in 1 year.
In 1 year?
And my home tax went up over 75% in 1 year.
Wow.
And I was really feeling bad till a friend of mine said, well, mine doubled. Actually, it went over. He was paying $4,800 last year. He's paying $12,000 this year. How is that justified? And when somebody looks at you and says you can't cut your way out of government's problems, how's that guy supposed to cut his way out of $7,000? He goes to his employer and say, give me more money? Or is he going to have to carve out $7,000 out of his budget? We're doing it. Government should have to do it. And people go, what's your solution? And I said, broaden the tax base. That's the only way you can do it. Illinois has a population of 12.8 million people, and it's slowly going downhill. It started since 2014. We've been losing population. But out of that, there's 4.8 million homes, residential homes, in the state of Illinois for 12.8 million people, okay? You need to broaden that base rather than go after 4.8, go after 12.7 or 12.8. And the way you do that, I think, is you lower the property tax to almost nothing and pick a number and raise the sales tax. And you have everybody paying. There's kind of an anomaly, and I'll throw that out there right now, that people that rent don't pay taxes. Well, they do pay taxes.
It's just built into their
It's
rent.
built into their rent, exactly. And with us saying that, if you were to go look at a two-bedroom rental in Illinois, to be able to do that, you have to have a combined income of $20, almost $21 an hour between you and somebody else sharing that. If you're in Missouri, it's $15 an hour. Job will support a two-bedroom apartment. And you can do that all around us and find out we're above everybody by at least $5. So people in Illinois have to earn more money in order just to meet their basic needs. And it's tough to do that when your poverty rate's somewhere between 13 and 15% in your state.
Yeah, and I've argued that the property tax is what is killing. It's unfair,
It
as you
is.
say,
It is.
to renters, to business owners. It's unfair to school districts because you have a great inequality of funding from one district
Exactly.
to the next. It's not good for anyone. And it's extremely hard to get someone to bring their business to Illinois because of the high property taxes.
Exactly.
When they
And-
could be
and-
across the line in Indiana, let's
And
say.
to prove your
it's
point,
much
Terry,
worse.
look what's going on. It's in Seattle, out there where they kind of went after Google and said we're going to do a head tax, and Google said, well, you know what? We were going to bring 7,000 jobs in. Now maybe it's 3. So taxes directly affect how people think, and when you are charging people 2.3, I think we're 2.33% is what our property tax assessed in Illinois is, and we're the second highest in all the United States. New Jersey's first, we're second. Then you start adding income tax and all the other little fees that go along, and all of a sudden people are saying, you know what, this is eating up a lot of my money. I have less disposable income to push out there. We'll give them that disposable income. Let them make choices, and the way you do it is lower the property tax and go to, I don't care, pick a number, 8%, 9%, 10%, sales tax. Then I have some control over what I'm spending and how I'm spending it. I can look for bargains. I can buy used. I can say, okay, what are we doing different? Property tax you have no control over. Here's the bill, pay it.
And exactly, you have no control over it, and you just may not have the money to pay it.
Well, who it really affects, let's just cut to the nano here. The Democrats are the big leaders of let's help the lower income people. You push this property tax on them, they're the ones getting hurt the most because they can't afford it. I don't care, their home is what you just reach out and take some of their money, it affects them. And it lowers, you take a guy that's making $1 million and his property tax is $50,000, he can afford that. But somebody that's got a moderate home, the average is $100,000, and they got to pay $1,500 or $2,000, write a check out right from the get-go to the government, go, I get nothing for this here. At least when you buy something, you can go, I see what I paid for, I got it, this is mine.
Well, and the other
And
thing
you're
that
helping the economy because you're putting tax dollars back into the economy. And I heard a statement watching one of your programs where it was absolutely true. What Illinois is decimating everybody by the billions of dollars that they owe my company money. And they've owed it for over a year. And you go, what are we going to do? I have to keep paying my taxes, but yet they don't pay me, don't pay my employees, don't pay for parts and services.
And that's we had basically a 3-year period, more or less, where we had no budget going out.
Yeah, and let me say one thing because I paid attention on this. Kudos to the controller. Is her name Susan?
The comptroller,
Yeah, the
Susan
comptroller. Yeah.
Mendoza. Susanna
Kudos to her.
Mendoza.
She did some things there that saved the state a lot of money, and I thought she did a great job. So, I want to pat her on the back for what she did because she saved the taxpayers a lot of money on a couple things she did.
We borrowed $6 billion that was from bonding, that was in the budget that was passed actually over the governor's veto last summer, and actually reduced the unfunded backlog of bills from about $16 billion. I say this for the viewers, from about $16 billion down to about $8 billion and change. Of course, when we say change, that's hundreds of millions of dollars.
It is.
And of course, that also increased the income tax, although Illinois' income tax, one, is still lower than our surrounding states, and B, when you're taxed as a percentage of income, you may have the money to pay that, whereas with your home in Illinois, as we don't have home appreciation like you might have in a Florida, a Texas, a California.
Well, actually, your value's going down because I looked. Mm-hmm. So the average real estate market is decreasing in Illinois, which means when your assessed valuation goes up, that total dollar amount can go down because of loss of value. So the idea is the government's got to stay even. They're not going to let you stay even. So that when your property value goes down, the trick for them is let's just increase the percentage that we're taking from you.
If members of the legislature are watching this and you could have their attention, what in essence, would be your message to them.
Get off your duffs. Do something. You know, me as a taxpayer, I'm more infuriated when I talk to a representative and a senator and they just kind of throw their hands up. If you don't know what to do, then you've been in office too long. Get out of the way. Let somebody else do it. And we were talking earlier, you and I. One thing that drives me absolutely nuts is unfunded mandates. And we're talking about property taxes, which is what our schools use to fund. And now you have some clown that says, well, let's set a minimum for teachers' salaries. And how are they going to pay for that minimum salary? It's ridiculous. You know, on one hand, you want to say let the locals do it, and the other side, you want to interject yourself. I'm all for paying teachers. I think teachers are the most underpaid people in the world. But how do we do that? How do we get there? You're not going to get there doing the same thing you're doing. You do it by broadening the tax base, and the only way you can do that is raise the sales tax and take the burden off the property owners. And then everybody's paying from top to bottom. You're all paying a certain percentage, and you have your choice of what you want to pay for.
It's a more equalized allocation of finances where it's not based upon your zip code.
Yeah, and I'm watching the governor's race, and JB, I don't know where he's getting information, but if they open up the Constitution, I'll eat that hat up there. They're not going to open that Constitution up and allow it for progressive tax. Maybe that's the way we ought to go, but there's such a fear that if they open up that Constitution, there's things in there that maybe you want to change, or I want to change.
They could change that just with an amendment that would be voted on. They don't have to have a constitutional convention.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they can do that, because there's going to be leverage, because other people are going to say, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. And you're going to bring the whole thing to the table.
What they might consider is if you have a progressive income tax, and if then we would also say we're going to tax retirement income, which we currently don't do. We're one of the few states that do not.
Well,
you could then be taxing some of these higher income pensions.
Here's what you got to watch
rate.
when you start fooling around with that stuff, Terry. Seniors vote. Of all the groups that get out and vote, they vote. And when you start talking about their pensions and their Social Security and that kind of stuff, you'll get a backlash of voters like you've never had before. I think that there's some things that you can do, obviously, and I've never understood it when Rauner came in the door and said, some of the benefit packages that we're handing out here, this isn't going to fly. Well, me being the mayor, had that have been my situation, I'd have said, we got a fire hiring freeze. We're not hiring anybody. We're not hiring my friends, your friends, pals, qualified people. There's a hiring freeze on it until we sort this out, what we can and can't do. And if we can't put these people, everybody that's on there today, Terry, deserves what they got because we promised them they were going to get that. I don't have a problem with that. But you see where it's headed us to. Now you need to look at it and say, anybody hired from this date forward, figure out what the package is going to be. 401k, you're going to pay for part of your health care, and they know that coming in. The jobs are there. Do you want it? But this is the circumstance. We've spent 3 years arguing about it. Nobody did anything. I'd have done that the very first get-go. Over every agency that I controlled, I would have done that. And then by pressure, put it on the other agencies. Why stand there for 3 or 4 years and yap about it? You could be further down the road fixing the problem. And we're not. We're not any closer to fixing the problem than we were when he got there.
When you talk to other business people in the community, which I presume you do.
Oh, they're patting me on the back and say, yeah, get out there. Tell them what's going on. They're just as aghast as we are.
I think there's a feeling in Illinois across the state, and I talk to people across the state as well, that we're not even though we have a rising stock market, even though we have now an economy growing at faster, that prosperity is bypassing Illinois, that people feel like they're drowning.
It is. It is. Try being in business and other than being a moving company or something like that. And I actually do have a friend of mine that's in the moving business. And he told me the other day, he says, I have no trucks available to move anybody out of Illinois till June. My trucks are all full. Now, he's doing great. He loves it. And I said, well, just tell the last person moving, turn the light out because we'll all be gone. I mean, you as a business person, you're wanting to grow and expand your business. And when you're looking at Illinois and you see they're losing people and that's market share, that's another reason to say I don't want to go there. Just the loss of people in your community is huge. And I would venture to say, I just saw a statistic the other day, we've lost about 2,200 people in Sangamon County. That's a pretty good chunk of people to lose in Sangamon County, when those are jobs, those are people that may spend money in your business. So where are new people coming into my business from? I'm taking them from somebody else. We're not growing it based on
You're
growth.
cannibalizing at this point
Yeah.
because we don't have
Yeah.
growth of the population.
Let me tell you something, Terry. The average growth in the United States is 9.7%.
Growth of population?
Growth of population. There's 7 states, and we're one of them, that has negative growth. So that means the other states are getting some of our growth, or some of
Our
our
population,
Yeah.
which we know,
Yeah.
the people are leaving, yeah.
So if you're a rep or you're a senator, does that make you feel good? I told you earlier today, I said 2 counties in Illinois pay more percentage-wise than any other counties in the United States, and I was shocked at one of them. I was like, I've never even heard of that county. And you think Chicago, one of them was up in the Chicago area, but the other one's not. And I was shocked when I saw that. It's like, I had to go look up and see where that county was at.
Well, the other thing to consider, and I've had a lot of people say, and as we've talked about here, we need to rewrite Illinois' tax code.
Exactly.
Ralph Martiri has made this argument. We tax like it's the 1950s where everyone's making
Exactly.
widgets, and they're not. They're service
Yeah.
economy. But when you look at the way we tax, not only is everyone screaming that they're getting taxed out of their homes or that their businesses are being closed down, is that it's not solving our financial problem. We're not in great financial shape as a state, so that even the way we're doing it isn't working.
Somebody told me the other day, Terry, that we have 30 pages of exemptions in the sales tax code. 30 pages. And I have time to go look that up, and I'm going to, and I'll let that out to anybody that wants to see it. But my attitude is raise the sales tax and have no exemptions. Food, basic food, and medicine don't have a tax on it. Everything else tax, and then lower your property tax to almost nothing. Do away with all the exemptions. Who that helps is the common guy like you and me and everybody else out there. Who it hurts is these special interest groups that can afford to have their lobbyists downtown bending in these reps' ears and bending in the governor's ear and bending in all these ears saying, hey, you got to help me, pal, don't let this go through. Well, they're just hurting everybody when they do
I was in
that.
the printing business. You're in the auto business, repair business.
Yep.
You have to collect a sales tax on parts, right?
Yeah, we should be collecting on both sides. I'd rather do that.
You don't, which I mean, just so people know, because a lot
Yeah.
of times they don't. If you had a job that was $100, and if $70 of that was labor and $30 was parts, you tax on the $30 of parts. There's no
Exactly.
tax on labor.
Exactly.
You would argue if we just taxed on the whole $100.
Yeah.
But correspondingly, that would allow you to cut property taxes. And when I had a printing job, I had an economic transaction in the economy. When you fix something or someone else sells a widget, they have an economic transaction. But when an accountant or a lawyer or a barber shop has an economic transaction, they don't pay any tax on that.
Exactly. There's a whole undercurrent out there too, Terry, that people don't realize. It's cash. And you'd kind of just
The hidden
mention about-
economy.
Yeah, and I'll have barbers be ready to kill me, but cash business. You're not paying. When was the last time you paid any kind of tax on getting your hair cut? And I'm not forcing the issue onto these guys, but why is it only a certain part of my business gets taxed and not all of it? And then you come in and whack me with a huge property tax and go, well, here, we're going to take this. Let's broaden the base. And I can't express that enough. You got to think, broaden the base. You have everybody paying, do away with the exceptions. And when you do that, away with the exceptions, and you broaden the base, you'll have more money to be able to fix our pension reform, to pay for schools, do the things that we need to do, the infrastructure. You'll see cash beginning to come into the coffers, and people won't realize they're paying it. Now,
Or
when
at
I got to
least
pay,
I mean, they have the choice, as we already discussed.
Exactly.
If you want to buy,
a Mercedes and it's a $100,000 car, or do you think, you know what, a nice Impala will do me? You're going to pay the tax.
there's no
but it's-
perfect tax, but by the fact that you are pricing the middle class out of their homes,
Exactly.
and the middle, we might say the middle class businesses, it's not like this is, Microsoft here. This
Exactly.
is representative, your business, of the kind mine was, where you got, 6 or 8 people or whatever working
Well, what do
for
you
you, and
do,
that's very
Terry,
common.
with the fixed income people? When you continue to raise the price on them and their house value's going up, I mean, they don't have a choice. They can't go and
Well,
say,
their house value is not, but their property tax is going up.
yeah,
right?
their choice is, do I eat? Do I have medicine? Or do I pay my property taxes? How can a senator or representative sit down there in the Capitol in good faith and not think about those people?
And
I thought
I've
about
done
them every day as I was mayor. Every day, those were the people I was concerned about.
I was going to say, I've done the story of the old woman living in a trailer park, and just with what she had to live on,
Well, here's,
she had to pick between food and medicine, as
you
you say.
you want me to tell you how silly the taxes are, Terry? You brought it up, a trailer. You know how a trailer gets taxed at all?
No.
Okay. If you have wooden steps going up to your trailer, you're taxed $45 a step. If there's steel trailers going up, steel steps going on a trailer, it's $95 a step. Now, how stupid is that? That's your tax code in action based on property value. And somebody could drive by here and go, hey, repaint his building. There's the other side of your property tax. If you, as a property owner, work to maintain your property and keep it up and add improvements to it, guess what? It costs you more money. If I let it go and deteriorate and it goes down, it costs me less. So
You have an incentive to allow
you
your
have an
property to go
incentive
down
to
in
keep
value.
your property up, not because we want to give more money to the government. That's the other underlying issue that politicians just don't get. And I'm to the point where they ought to all be voted out. They should be embarrassed. Every one of them should be embarrassed that we haven't solved this problem.
So you've been
I've been in their shoes.
You've been in their shoes. You've been a Republican when you look at the governor's race, and we should say it's not just about the governor's
No.
race; it's the legislature.
It's all of them. It's all of them. They're in this deal together.
But for both. So again, you would just, there is a way we can get out. Sooner or later, we're going to have to face the music.
And
right?
I've reached out. I said, I've been in your shoes. And it's funny how some of them will go, there's nothing I can do. When they say that to me, you know what my response is? Then why are you there? If there's nothing you can do, why are you there taking my money from me and not doing anything about the problems we got? This is severe. We're at the tipping point. And you know who should be worried the most out of this whole deal?
No.
If I was a banker or in finance or in mortgage finance, I'd be worried a lot. Because people are going to, we're at that tipping point where somebody goes, I can't pay for this anymore. I can't get out what I got in it. Here's the keys.
Right.
Have a nice day.
And that could happen. There could be
Sure,
just
it's
people
gonna
that
happen,
say
Terry.
they're just going to walk away from their home and say, I didn't ever imagine I would default on my home, but I'm not going to be a financial slave when you just keep taxing me. And I will say my house I've been in 15 years, I almost will be lucky to sell for what I bought it for 15 years ago, but I've paid $100,000 in property taxes over.
I just saw, we were riding through a subdivision the other day, and Cinda pulled up her iPad. She goes, oh, that's a neat looking house, and it was for sale. She pulled it up on Zillow. In '09, the people paid $540,000 for it. It's for sale right now for $420,000. I said, what are the taxes on that? She said $12,000. I said, that's $1,000 a month going to the government. So the law says, and I'm not an attorney, I don't profess to be an attorney, but the law says they can't come after you for your pension, your retirement, or whatever. You can own a house and you can own a car. Here's the keys. I'm going to go do something else. Now, that's the disaster that these legislatures, the governor, all of them are asking for to happen, unless they stand up and lead us and say, we can get us out of this, and this is what we need to do.
And that could lead to a banking crisis because,
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
it would just be a rolling
A total
problem.
collapse of our financial situation, because houses and housing development and homes are part of the staple that keeps our economy going. It's part of the American dream. And we should be making it easier for people to have that American dream, not harder. And that's what we're doing.
And we talked about the loss of population, and why would young people stay here
Yeah.
to be, shorn like sheep, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they're going to move to other places.
And I was
where,
shocked when I looked up the average age of somebody in Illinois, and it's 36. And there are more women in Illinois than men. Go figure. So I'm a big believer right now that women should be taken over. Maybe they'll have more responsibility than us guys have had. We've shown what we can do, and it ain't good.
Well, we'll see as they put together this budget, but it's not just about one-year budget, it's about more major changes, and we're going to, as a society, be making those decisions with the legislature and with the governor's race this year. So,
My encouragement to those guys is change. Do the changes. Bite the bullet. Step up. Say, what we were doing wasn't working. Take the blame if something goes wrong. It isn't that bad. I did it. It worked out great. Citizens are better for us doing what we did, and we've done it with both sides of the aisle, Democrats or Republicans. We worked together, and our community is a lot better off because we did it.
and I think you said it's short-term pain, but long-term gain.
Yeah, exactly. And now you look at Springfield and you go, some of the things that they've done that we put in place that has been reversed, now they're back to square one where you should have kept the belt tight, not did the things you've done. I mean, just the simple things. I'll give you one, Terry. We closed public libraries on Sunday. You know, I took a lot of flack for that. You think, oh, who's going to the library? Well, a lot of vocal people stood up and said, we want that open. The numbers didn't justify it. We closed it. Somebody
Do you remember what that saved?
It wasn't a whole lot. It was like $200,000 because we had to pay overtime and security and all that stuff. It wasn't. It wasn't a huge number.
But every
in that.
dollar mattered.
Every dollar mattered, and somebody, some legislature, some politician got to feeling bad because somebody was leaning on them, said, okay, let's reopen it. Now we're back in Springfield. When you talk to somebody, they'll say we're down $11 million. Okay, whose fault's that? Whose fault is that?
And when you hear, because you've put together budgets, when you hear that people are not picking a revenue number in the legislature,
How do you do that? How don't you say it costs us this much, so we can't spend any more than we're taking in? You have to have a number in order to put a budget together, guys. I mean, that's budget 101. If you don't know how much you have to spend, you can't put any kind of reasonable budget
it would be
together.
a bit like saying how much of a house can we afford if we don't decide
Yeah.
what our income is,
No,
right?
I'm going to tell you how it is, Terry, so everybody understands this.
Right.
When we're done here, I'm going to say, let's go to lunch. And you're going to say to me, where do you want to go? And I'm going to say, you know what, I don't care, pick it. And you pick a nice steakhouse. And we get there and I go, shoot, Terry, I don't have any money with me. You're going to have to buy. Well, it was irrelevant how much we were going to spend because I wasn't going to pay for it. That's what these guys are doing to us. It's irrelevant to them how much they're going to spend because they're going to dump it on everybody else to pay for it. My kids, grandkids, future generations, they don't care, Terry. And it's tragic. And it's time we, as Illinoisans, who are great people, good-hearted, generous people, stand up and say, you know what, we've had enough of you clowns. It's time for us to do something different, and you're not in our agenda. And I think that's the only way they get the message. They want to stay in power, they want us to be elected, but they don't want to do the job. And if they start messing around with the Constitution, I'm going to do my damnedest to put in there, you guys are part-time workers, you ought to be paid as part-time workers. No health care benefits. Pick a number, $20 an hour, and you're there how many weeks? That's what you get paid. Go on home.
Well, Frank Edwards, we appreciate you giving us your insights as one who's been both a
They
mayor
can
and
do it,
alderman
Terry.
and
That's
a business
all I
owner.
can do is stress you can do this. You know, my phone number, you guys know how to get a hold of me. Call me, I'll help you. I'll do whatever I can do. Illinois deserves better than they're getting. And I appreciate you calling me and saying, hey, you've done this, how'd you do it?
Thanks again.
Yeah.